Well, hello, USA, America, in the world. My name is Tony Hang. I am reporting from St. Paul, Lino Lakes, Minnesota area with PDocs broadcast. I am live tonight, 7 o'clock Central Time. Just wanted to say hello to everybody. It's been a fantastic, fun week with the AU, the Hoosier races, and all the One Loft races that are coming to the finale here. I am just so excited to be presenting everything and everyone to you tonight. Thank you so much for your wonderful replies. I have been getting emails and text messages and phone calls from all around the world about how they love the broadcast. And, this would not exist if I didn't have support of everybody. And I'm just so excited to have everyone here tonight. I am very, very excited. I wanted to kind of introduce myself one more time. If you guys have never heard about us and you're joining us tonight for the first time, PDoc broadcast, my vision and goal is to bring the old time listening back into the new age. And our goal here is to do interviews with other pigeon fanciers from all around the world to teach, to educate, to promote, all within one location, which is PDoc broadcast. And we are central in Minnesota here, one of the part of Pigeon Central. If you guys have not heard of Pigeon Central, if you guys have Facebook and social media, definitely add yourself onto that group. It is definitely one of the largest growing groups we have in Facebook social media, and it's growing with popularity with all sorts of beginners to advanced pigeon keepers. And we're just not all about racing pigeons. We're going to do fancy pigeons too, rather if it's show birds or performing breeds like rollers and whatnot. We're going to try to get a little bit of everything going on the same time. But for further ado, I'm not going to take too much time. We're going to get started right away. Today we have a very, very special guest. We have a special guest that we're going to be talking to. They are a very, very good friend of mine, Ryan and Ray Jones from Utah and the Jones boys. Tonight we're going to get the privilege to speak to them, to learn a little bit about what they got going on in the breeding loft, to learn about their birds, to learn about how they're doing in One Loft. And they're really, really special because they have an auction going on this weekend in Omaha Grainbelt. And they definitely have birds that are listed for auction right now on iPigeon, and something that definitely you guys should definitely look into. But what we're gonna do is, I met the Ray and Ryan a few years back, and I tell you, they are definitely a blessing to the racing world. Their education has brought me to a different level. It's always a fun time to see them, especially when it's the AU convention. They're definitely heavy hitters on that. They do one loft racing, they do club racing, they do a little bit of everything, and we're going to learn about their family of birds and how they have done it. So without further ado, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give them a jingle and get them on the line. And keep in mind, we are a delay because we are doing it live. There is no turning back. So what is said on the broadcast is what is said, and we're not turning back. So once again, if there's any questions, I'm going to be watching the chat box as well. But keep in mind, there's going to be a delay. So if I don't see your question right away, just give me a time. And at the end of the session, if you guys are hanging out with us, we will be doing a Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions at the end, we will go from there. So with further ado, let's give the Jones boys a call, and we'll go from there. Hello. How you doing? This is Tony from Pigeon Broadcast. How are you doing today?
Tony?
Can you hear me okay? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Are you there, Ryan? Can you hear me okay? Looks like we have a little bit of a disconnect here. Let me see what's going on. Can you hear me okay, Ryan? Give me 1 second. Let me try to get him on the phone here. It's something definitely disconnected here. We'll go back once again. This is live, so if there's any mistakes, we're all going to live it together. If it goes well, we're going to hear it together. So let me try one more time here. Give him a call. See if they can hear us again. Can you hear me okay? Check, check. Hello? Ryan? Hello? Check, check. Hello? Let me see here. I'm sorry, guys, for the inconvenience here. Let me put you guys on hold, okay? I am going to take a look at this really quick. I'm going to put you guys on hold, and I will give you guys a call, shout back here. Hold on 1 second.
Hey, that's Tony.
Can you hear me? Hello? Check, check.
Oh yeah,
All right. Can you hear me okay, Ryan?
we hear you loud and clear.
All right. Sounds good. I'm glad I finally got you guys on the phone here. Give me a quick show. Can you guys introduce yourself really quick?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm Ray Jones, and I'm Ryan Jones. We're the Jones boys.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm sorry about that. Listeners, thank you guys for your patience. That's what happens when you go live. Anything can happen. And I'm glad we're able to get it rolling again here. And make sure if you guys are with us on the chat, make sure that you guys, if you guys hear, please write amen so that I know you guys are there. But hey, guys, further ado, I'm very excited to have you guys here today on the broadcast. But before we dive deep, can you tell us a little bit about the Jones boys and how you got started with pigeons, and just give us a little bit of basically some information about who you guys are? And I'm gonna pass the mic to you guys, and we'd love to learn more about the Jones boys.
Okay. Well, I guess that I get the honors on this side, Tony. The Jones boys were. We started in the racing pigeons. Actually, my dad and I joined the club in 1961 and came up with the name Jones Boys just because we thought it was cool. I mean, we were the Jones Boys. So we started out. We raced under that name for quite a while until some club changes were until Dad and I were no longer flying as just the Jones boys. I had moved to a different club, brought the breeders all out to my house, which happened in 1972, 73. So I had all the breeders and a race team at my house, and Dad, of course, still had his race team at his house. We were about 10 miles apart from each other. And at that point of time, as time took us on, we then separated and raced under Ed Jones, Ray Jones, and soon after that, Ray Jones and Son. We've raced here in the valley. In fact, I don't think my dad missed a race from 1961 right through to his passing in 1999. He was our race secretary, the race secretary for his club most all of those years. And if he wasn't actually the race secretary, he was definitely helping those guys through it. It's a fun deal. We've always enjoyed the birds. And what year was it, Brian? It was when you actually then joined the club.
Oh, in 1993, I bought my house just a year prior, and the first thing I did was build a loft. And I started racing as third generation Jones. And my dad and my grandpa quickly changed the names of their lofts to first generation and second generation accordingly. And we flew that way until my grandpa passed away. Actually, he was out transporting pigeons and had a mishap with the Ford Ranger pickup truck and the Firestone tires. And, anyway, at that point in time, my dad and I just changed to Jones Boys Ryan and Jones Boys Ray, and that's how we've flown here in the Great Salt Lake Combine since then, and present.
And of course, out in the circuit on one loft races, were totally the Jones Boys.
And of course, Team UCAS with our partner Tom Hill in Arizona. That came about with a partnership in San Diego back in the day. The San Diego Classic was a claimer race, and if they knew who your birds were, or they knew who the breeder was, it was very hard to acquire your bird for the race. So we changed our one loft racing to UTAS down in San Diego, so nobody knew who the exact breeder was. So we were able to afford to enter our birds in the races at that point in time, and it just is stuck. UTAS just is Utah and Arizona combined, so it was kind of a cool name, and we've stuck with it. And I think now for the last couple decades, actually, we've been running that. Yeah, partners.
Well, that's really really cool, man. That's I love the fact that it's a third generation. I mean, this is passed on family through family through family. Do you know how your dad got started in pigeons? Do you remember how, and how that got started, or should I say grandpa and dad?
I do, Tony. Actually, at one point in time, I don't remember, I believe I went to a fair or something that I personally raised. Got interested in pigeons, and started, of course, with my rollers and fancy birds, a few of those, that you could go and buy out of the newspaper. And fortunately, a neighbor up the street from me, just 2 streets above me, saw my pigeons flying around and came down and explained the art of racing homing pigeons. He had lived in California next door to a very renowned pigeon racer, and Doug Brooks was the young man's name, and he happened to be my same age. He told me all about pigeon racing and me, and of course then my dad. And when we entered the club, we needed an adult in there. Ray couldn't enter as just a kid, and Dad and I decided we were going to do this together, and it never ended. It became such a tremendous, great partnership for the two of us, and then, of course, for my son and I and the three of us, it's been a wonder. It's been a really wonderful thing that happened for us. But that's what got us into it, was just a fellow kind of explaining to us how it was done, and it was such a neat concept. I couldn't believe it about pigeon racing, and we dug in deep, and very shortly thereafter started racing.
Well, that sounds really really cool. I hope that's the kind of legacy I want to live. I want to definitely do this, and hopefully some of my kids follow my footsteps. But hey, that might never work. But if it does, I'm gonna be definitely doing it the Jones way, man. That's really really cool. Now let's get right into the meat and the bones and the gravy here. Tell us about the family of birds that you have, and basically where do they originate from? How were you able to and how they were able to help you guys achieve what you guys have done today? I've been following your race records and whatnot, and oh man, if I was to talk about it, it would just take up the whole session. But just to kind of name a couple, I mean, you guys have won the quite a few awards, the Triple Crown. You guys have done all sorts of one loft wins, all the California races. You guys have done well. So so can you tell us a little bit about your family of birds, and give us a little time history on how they made who the Jones Boys are today?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. The Huskin Van Riel family, Dad and I were we're always well known for our ability in our long distance racing. That was our expertise, and that's where we paid our most attention to. And in 1984, I made a visit to my brother-in-law who lived in Whittier, California at the time. He had just moved there, and I'd gotten him into racing pigeons, and so when I got there, we visited. The only fellow that the only loft I visited when I was there visiting him was an employee of his, and that was Jack Henning. Jack was an older fellow, very, very into his own ways, and so I was introduced to Jack Henning and his family of Huskin Van Rills, which those birds were acquired according to Jack. I mean, him telling me the story. He had a partner, and in the early 60s, his partner actually went to Germany on a trip and went loft visiting and was introduced to a family of Huskin Van Rills there. The fancier, had Huskin Van Rills, and Jack's partner fell in love with them, brought home like 3 pair and some eggs like everybody always did back in those days. And Jack and he just fell in love with them, and they based their whole lot around that. I don't know what happened to Jack's partner, because when I met Jack, I didn't meet him, but the partner. But Jack had been inbreeding and line breeding that family of birds since the early 60s. And I met him in 1984. And Tony, I've looked at a lot of pigeons, visited a lot of lofts, and I know a lot of families of pigeons, but this family jumped out at me, and I was very in awe of them. So brought home 1 pair, and they happened to be birds 33 cock and 17 hen. They were the pair that Jack let me select. That is 0123's parents. And 0123, it became the bird that we dubbed as our foundation bird. I don't know. I don't know which one we'd really call foundation, because 33 and 17 were the pair that produced him. And then on top of that, the very next year, I was able to go back and acquire 33's mother, 499, which is absolutely one of the key pigeons in all of our pedigrees. So we've been building the family around that family ever since. I went to Ryan and my dad, and they agreed. Wow, what an exquisite pair of pigeons, and we kind of started going down that line full force. There wasn't too many. It was only a couple of years later that we got introduced to the George Van Riel birds, imported from George Van Riel of Belgium. And of course, he got his stock from his dad, Jeff, although a lot of people argue that, but guarantee you they were exactly like his dad's birds, and said to be from his dad's. We found that line, when crossed with our 0123 line, boy, it really let it up on racing. And of course, 0123's line had always been proven immediately to be great racers. And the imports crossed with the 0123s just really did very well, which we kept. Those 2 lines we still at present have, and especially the 0123 line, we're heavy into those.
So when excuse me, when we talk about the Huskin Van Riel, we technically have 2 families. Is that correct? The import line, and then your base, the 0123. Is that correct?
That is correct. Right.
Very nice. Now
we found that crossing the two lines within the family just worked really well. And of course, that way you end up with still straight Husky Man Rule, which is way cool.
So basically, you're taking the import line and then what you have there and just making another Husky Ren Reel. But the two crossing together has just been a big impact on your loft. Is that correct?
That's correct. Kind of gives you that hybrid figure that you get with a cross.
Now, I know a little bit about you guys as well. I know you have a couple other families. Is that correct? Can you talk a little bit about the other families? And I know you have a new addition as well.
Yeah, we're always me and Ryan and Dad. Of course, we started early '90s. Actually, we started going to the Arizona Open Classic, the AOC. We became good friends with a lot of those fellows there, but Dennis Branham, whom we had met and got to be friends with here in Salt Lake, who now lives there and did live there before. Anyway, he brought us down. We started going to that race, and quickly thereafter, with a little bit of help from hitting the cover of the Rolling Stone with stones of Pigeon World, the Pigeon Digest, or whatever it was at the time. Anyway, we got a few calls from the one loft race owners inviting us to please come and participate. So we kind of expanded into more races, but not getting. Of course, I always get off subject here, but while being able to go to all of the races that we started going to, they would generally have auctions and bring in famous people, and they would have auctions of birds at these races. And so I guess the next one, I would say, we were very impressed with Brad Laverne's Van Loon family. Brad had acquired his family of Van Loons from Guy Peters, who was also the fellow that bred Super 73. Brad did not get his from Campbell Strange, who had also gotten all of the Super 73 birds, but Brad got them directly from Geis. And Dad and Ryan and I picked out one little hen that we just fell in love with at an auction in Phoenix at the Arizona Open. And of course, me sitting there in front row looking at the birds, couldn't resist, and we ended up with two. And they became, they're in almost every pedigree we have of our Van Loon family. And fortunately, the next year, Brad was here in Salt Lake doing a seminar and an auction for us during our race at the Great Salt Lake Combine. And we decided to acquire one more cock, who happened to be, I had no idea of it at the time, but turned out to be, he was a brother of a bird that is a famous bird for Brad Laverne called the Laverne cock. And we had just picked this cock out of random, just liked him and bought him. And so those three Van Loons from the Laverne collection are probably the base. They are the base of our Van Loon family. We interjected a little of the Vic Miller blood, which again, for one loft racing, Vic Miller's birds were very hard to beat. They're a fast, young bird, long distance pigeon, so pretty hard to beat their credentials, and they mix very well with our Van Loons and our Van Rails. We had a small nucleus of them, and they really stepped it up for us also.
That's very, very nice. Now, I know that you also you have introduced the Kaz Borer. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, in 2011, we were down at the AU race in Arizona, and the group that usually did the Arizona Open Classic, Dennis Branham, Jim Krinick, all those guys, they were hosting the AU convention, and we were at Dennis Branham's house, and my dad just absolutely started doing handstands with this family of Kaz Borers from Gaston Vanderweer that Dennis had acquired just a year or two prior to that. And so I had made a point of telling Dennis Branham, boy, if you ever to sell any of these pigeons or, anything, let me know. We're definitely interested in acquiring some. And in fact, it was the week after all of the races down in San Diego, and Dennis Branham happened to have two birds in the first drop of the California Classic on that race, nestmates, and they were directly down from the Kaz board. Well, Dennis called me up that summer, and he said, hey, I'm putting these matings together, going to do some inbreeding, grandfather, granddaughter, double bred, this type of stuff. Would you be interested in the babies? He said, if not, it's no big deal. I've already gone blind out. People lining up to purchase them. And I said, no, absolutely not. I appreciate the phone call. We'll take all 4 babies. He said, okay, none of the eggs are even laid on the ground yet or fertile or anything, but as soon as they come up, I'll ship them to you. And did send the 4 birds up, and they all 4 ended up being hens. So 2 nestmate pair of hens. The first year that we had them in the stock loft, my dad and I kept all 4 birds because we were also partnering up with Tom Hill on the 4 pigeons. But we had got them late enough in the year that it's too late for Tom Hill to breed birds down in Arizona. So my dad and I had them in the stock loft, and we crossed 2 of them with our HBRs, 2 of them with our fan Loons, and immediately that young bird season, those birds from 100 miles, that small little nucleus we had, started outrunning the rest of the group by 10 and 15 minutes on a 100-mile training toss.
Wow, that's a big difference. Some speed, huh?
Yeah, and of course, that's what they were taught to be, was more of a middle distance to short distance speed bird. In fact, Dennis said, boy, don't expect to have these birds ever fly, your guys' 400, 500, and 600 mile races, because they're just not built for that. And of course, that very next spring during Old Birds, I ended up winning the 600-mile race with one of those birds out of those pairings. So, yeah. Right, cross with our HBR stuff. So, Dennis was amazed that our birds could take the Kaz Borer birds to the next level of pigeons we're winning for us now, from 150 miles all the way up to 600. Well, in 2013, our syndicate down at the California Classic was fortunate enough to be one of 2 birds in the first drop, and it was like a $50,000 win. So Dennis again contacted me and said, hey, I put together a bunch of special matings and everything. I've got like 14 birds that I've set aside that I'm going to auction off. I've got a lot of people that are interested in them. If you guys want to come up from California and take a peek at them and come watch the Arizona Open Classic, you guys can pick through them, decide what you want to take, and I'll sell the other ones to other people. We got up there, and my dad and I and Tom Hill looked through the birds, and we took all 14 of them.
Wow, okay. Very nice.
And now, yeah, those birds are between here at our loft and obviously at Tom's, are breeding as winners, 1 loft race winners, club combine concourse winners, maturity winners. They've really made an impact with basically every bird that we've crossed them with. And of course, our base families were already doing excellent. It kind of just bumped them up and kept us going to the next level.
And just so that I can explain to the people that are listening right now, just to give you guys a little bit of stats, last year in the 2017 One Loft stat page, Team UTAS, they were ranked number 2 into percentage of birds entered into the first race. They entered 48 birds, 39 went to the first race, 81% made it to the first race. They are also ranked high when it comes to the breeder that made money. They were also ranked high with the top 10 positions, and they were also ranked number 1 for 48 entry birds. 29 made it to the final. 60% of their birds made it to the final. So, there's definitely some homing ability that these guys have. And I'm assuming because you guys race them at home, you guys also notice that they have a lot of, they stick around. They got really good homing ability. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Last year's young bird team, I started out with 70 young birds, finished the full young bird season having flown all 8 weeks in a row, shipping every bird to the race station, and finished with 55 birds.
Wow,
that's flying all the way up to 340 miles.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, they just keep coming home, and I think in any kind of racing, they got to come home first before they can win a race, and your birds definitely prove that. That's definitely amazing. But speaking of flying, speaking of flying, do you guys race? Do you guys fly with the young birds and old birds? Do you guys fly a system? Since we're talking about flying, and over the years, I have seen some really awesome results with your long distance races. Can you tell us a little bit how you fly your birds and the system you run, and a little bit about the young birds and old bird? You don't have to go crazy, but a little brief on what you do.
Sure. The young birds, we fly to the perch. We do not do a lighting or a darkening system at all. We don't let the birds mate up unless they just want to do it on their own, as they would be in any one loft race. We feel that it's not to our advantage to run any type of a system during young birds, just in the fact that I don't know of a one loft race really out there that puts the birds on a system. So I don't know that it's beneficial, if you're happening to run a system for your young birds to excel, that you're really proving what your breeding is doing. It's more based on what you are doing as a handler. So we believe pretty heavily in just letting the perch take care of it and just, coming home for the love of home. In old birds, my dad flies natural. Just
old school.
Yeah.
Old school.
Just leaving the team mated up and let them come home to eggs and raising babies and doing their thing. I also race a natural team, and I do a select few widowhood cocks, which has been very successful for me. In fact, when I started racing, I was working all the time, so I worked 12, 14 hours a day, and widowhood was the only system that I could fly because it takes no time to fly. So I had great success with very little hands-on with my team.
That's amazing. So the concept that I'm getting here is you're basically just telling me that these birds, you guys fly natural and let the birds do their own thing. So they're naturally, and taking that same concept, because you're right, most of these one lofts, they're not, well, I wouldn't say all, but most of them are natural systems. So you're basically doing almost like a little one loft at home, flying them naturally.
Absolutely, and just letting the breeding pairs select themselves as who is going to stay mated up together and who needs to be swapped around or who needs to be moved out.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, speaking of breeding, let's touch a little bit of bases about that. Can you tell us a little bit on how you guys prepare your birds for breeding? And do you guys favor like breeding super early? Do you guys breed late? And you don't have to go much detail, but just kind of a little idea for us.
Well, actually, Tony, when it comes to the breeding early or late, I usually, the breeders are at my house. Ryan and I select our breeders and decide who's going to be mated to whom early on. But as time allows me to get them together, we have pretty horrendous winters here in Utah most of the time. So I'm always trying to get them together the 1st of February, but not very successful at that very often. So they sometimes don't get together till the 1st of March, usually in between those two dates. But preparation for it, we don't do a lot of preparation. In fact, of the last many years, I believe totally in dealing with the canker. I do medicate our birds for canker, but I usually do it after they've mated and gone down on eggs, but before the babies are hatched, so that the parents are just getting it themselves. That is most preparation for it. We're not out there trying to do, as Ryan said, lighting and falconing systems, so we don't need to breed way early like a lot of people do. And sometimes we'll breed a little later on into the summer than I like, but those same pigeons are racing that fall at, July hatches are definitely put right into the first races of the season. Birds can be raced very young if you get them out routing up in the air and out routing. And they're routing, but they're still peeping. But they're in the training baskets, and they go on to be as good a birds or better than the older ones.
Wow, that's very amazing. I think that's one thing that I always hear. And a lot of flyers are getting out in the sport, and they're always trying to breed super early. So you're actually telling me opposite, and you're having success with late birds, and I think that's pretty cool. You said that as late as June and July, you said?
Yeah, in fact, Tony, as my flying loft goes, I don't take a bird from my dad until after our old bird season is over, which is mid-June. So
wow.
I don't take any birds until it's our 3rd round, and yeah, I fly them all the way out to 340 miles every year.
Man, to me that's inspiring. That like if because I'm a really busy guy, and to hear that, to have yours fly so late, but they do so well, that's a really cool perspective. That's really nice.
Yeah, I always give him the best one. That's the late.
Now, I know I jumped the gun on this a little bit, but last year I know you guys were ranked very high when it comes to one loft breeding. It seems like for the racing sport, a lot of participants are joining the one loft scene, and I know you guys have done very well all over. It's not even just one state or one region. I mean, I've seen the Utah's birds do well all over the place. Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys prep your birds and when you guys send them out? Do you guys have any suggestions for all the beginners out there, or anyone that's interested in flying one loft? Maybe a pointer here and there.
But one thing I would suggest, one thing that we try to do, try to stay very firm on, is a new mating. We'd like to test those guys out here at home, fly them, see how they're doing within our own lofts with our local competition and everything like that. Once the breeding pairs show success with that, they're getting good returns. A high percentage of their babies are scoring in the top 10% of the combine or in the diplomas. Then those are the pairs that we look at the hardest to send out to charity races or one loft races. Kind of try to stack the deck in our favor that way, just as I don't know, if you can pad it some way and have some knowledge of what the babies are going to do at certain distances, and with certain winds, how tough the race is, stuff like that, you've got a better idea of what course to send to what course. Yeah.
And I'll add to that. And if there was a suggestion that I feel that could be made to people who are looking into going to one loft races, you've got to realize that you, you need to send the best pigeons to the one loft races. Don't keep those birds home for yourself. Send, if you got a bird that you really, really want to keep for yourself, that's the one you send to the one loft race. But send your best, and then it gives you the best chance to win.
I really love that, man. That's some very, very good information that you guys gave us with your one loft suggestions. That is definitely right. You got to send the best, man. You got to send the best. Now, lastly, I know this is taking a little bit longer than normal. Lastly, I know that the auction this weekend for the Grainbelt features you guys this weekend, which is awesome. Now, can you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about some of the birds that you selected for us, and kind of pick a couple that you want to talk about? I know I see a little bit of everything in there. You got your Loons, your HVRs, your Kaz Borer. Can you explain a little bit about what you guys are offering?
Well, really, I kind of crippled us for years to come here at the fact that these birds that are in there are little race winners right off me and my dad's race teams, and also one loft prize winners, um, and full brothers and sisters, two one loft winners, including 43rd place in South Africa this past February. We got a full sister to the Triple Crown winner in there, San Diego Triple Crown winner in there.
Sure.
Yep. We also did a special thing that I'm not sure many breeders out there do, but we took our Triple Crown winner, made it to Paul Daniels' Triple Crown winner from the year before. We have two babies out of those two Triple Crown winners, so between the two of them, they had won over $80,000 between the two of them in separate years. But there's two babies out of that pair, and also we took it a little step further in the fact that Paul had bred his combine champion bird in young birds, this last young birds, and I had won champion bird in our combine and concourse in old birds, and we mated those two together, and we've got a baby in the auction out of those as well. But really, we took what we felt was going to be our next generation of breeders, what we were going to be moving in. We wanted everybody to see the quality of what we've got here, and we went with our best foot forward, and we put those birds in that auction, from our HVRs to our Van Loons to our Van Loon Kaz Borers to our HVR Kaz Borers. You can look through our lineup. I've got a full sister to last year's AU convention winner in there. Say we've got 4 different concourse winners in there. Two birds that were second drop, just seconds out of winning first at 2 different one-loft races, one here in Utah at Spring Break, and also at Fast Eddie's. Those two were a 350-mile and 400-mile race, respectively. And in fact, one of the birds that we've got in there, 1017, a gentleman there in Minnesota, Yai Yang, has a full sister to that has already bred him a concourse winner this year. Stephen Michael won second in the Midwest, the Topeka race, with the bird down from our birds. Also, the gentleman that won 11th overall in the race, and I believe won the Minnesota concourse, that bird was directly down from our stuff that Kevin Tao bred. And we've got a slate hen in the auction, 1103. That is after
HVR that definitely should never have left my breeding lot. Never. But those are three full sister to last year's Grainbelt, 4th overall winner, 7 minutes behind or seconds behind the overall winner. And I agree with Ryan. what we put in there was most of the birds that are in there, I would love to have been able to have put into our stock lot to give a try, and a lot of real inbred 0123 HBRs, straight red HBRs, and some straight red Loons, and then on top of that, of course, the crosses between the families that are also super breeders when they're given the chance.
Well, that sounds like an amazing run up. Anywhere from right from your foundation stock to race winners, I think it's going to be a fantastic time. And as we are coming to a conclusion here, if you guys do have any questions for the Jones boys, make sure to type it on the YouTube chat, or if you guys are following with us on Facebook, send me a message. But before we conclude here, I always ask this to everybody that I speak to, and I know for a fact that we're going to get the Jones boys back in town here to have more conversations with us at PDoc in the future. But lastly, I would like to ask you guys for a beginner's tip. So for anyone that's out there that's starting out with racing pigeons or pigeons in general, what kind of tip would you suggest for them? And how they would get started, rather if it's a health thing or a flying thing. If you can give us a quick tip, and then we'll go from there. So once again, if you guys have any questions, make sure to type it on the YouTube chat or send me a message on Facebook, and we'll give the mic back to the Jones boys.
My biggest suggestion would be fly your birds at home, get in a good club, test your birds, talk to the people in your area that are winning your club races and everything. See what they do as far as the health program goes. Talk to all of them. Come up with something that will work for you as a basis, with your time, stuff like that. Racing pigeons can consume a lot of time, but it doesn't have to. You can be very successful and still be very busy at work, as I can attest to. There's not been any time in my life that I haven't had to work, a full-time job. And so I would say you get yourself miles ahead if you're out there participating and being a part of a good club and proving your birds out on a regular basis.
Yep. I would add that, that when it comes to racing pigeons, definitely you need to train them. You need to get road miles on them. Birds need wing time, so you don't hold back, don't baby them. They need their training, they need the wing time. And the only other thing I would add, and this, I don't know that this is any more beginners than all of us. Once you've got a program that is working and you're seeing success with it, when it comes to that big race that you want to win, don't change a thing. Just keep with the program you were doing, and you probably have a good chance of winning that one big race. But if you start changing up, changing all of your training program, feeding program, trying to win that big race, I'll almost guarantee you won't. So I would throw that in.
Well, one of the questions that came in real quick here, and I'm just going to get a couple questions to you guys, and then we'll let you guys conclude with a goodbye to everybody. One of the questions that came in is, do you guys look for flights, the way birds handle? Do you guys look at throat, eyes? Are you guys like eye readers, throat readers, like all of that when you guys are selecting birds?
I would say we look at everything. I mean, there's not any part of it that we don't look at. I'm not sure that we grade heavier on one side or the other, but and the bird needs to be well balanced, buoyant. Frame is a very solid frame. I guess the one thing that I look at in an eye, or that we look at in an eye, is the eye can't be dominated by the pupil, can't be huge in the vitality, right? As far as the throat goes, I mean, the throat can fluctuate. Anyway, my experience is just fluctuates as far as what the health of the bird is. I mean, obviously, a bird that's on your race team and being trained all the time and everything like that, it should be very clean, look great, clothes. Bird that's just sitting around that's been in an auction, I don't know really what you're going to tell out of the throat. Maybe the vein that's back, I don't know that we do a lot with that, but those that do have told us that our birds have whatever they're looking for.
Yeah, it's funny. We may not look at it that heavily, but when those that do look at our birds, obviously, I think it's through performance that they have to have that. So the vein throat, you've got to have that to have successful birds.
So very, very nice. So it's a combination of everything. And well, that's great to hear. Here's another question. This is a question on YouTube. I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try. But the question is, what is your selection process in order to stock a bird? So do you guys fly a bird up to 607 times? It's got to win before you guys stock it, or what is your stocking process?
Well, I'd say it kind of fluctuates bird to bird, individual to individual. But hopefully it's just letting the basket do all the proving and performance for certain. I don't know that that's everything about it, and the fact that we have some matings that may be very inbred. You know what I mean? We may just be putting those birds directly into stock as parents are getting older, that type of thing. We want to retain that certain pigeon in the pedigree and be able to base around it. Maybe it's produced a bunch of winners. So I would say mostly it's about performance, but it's not always.
Well, I'll admit that when it comes to breeding, when you're breeding a bird to be a breeder of winners, an extremely inbred bird, you should not expect to go out and prove that bird out on the road, because you're going to lose 90% of any really inbred birds. If you've got a line of pigeons, and which fortunately we have, especially in our Husky Manrill family, they inbreed unbelievably well. And you can take those extreme inbreds and know that they're going to, with the right mate, create tremendous winners. So not always do we prove them out on the road. With any lines that we're not, that we don't know that they're that strongly bred and who's going to breed the winners, then of course they've got to prove themselves.
Awesome. Here's another quick question. Do you guys have a pretty strict feeding diet when it comes to racing old birds and young birds? Are you guys like, every day they got something different, or do you guys kind of do a general mix and go from there?
We do a light to heavy is what I like to call it. We'll start out the week, like Monday, with the birds on straight barley. And as the week progresses, go from straight barley to 50% barley and just regular race mix, which we just have a basic race mix that we use, to Thursday and Friday being a very hot mix, more like safflower, that type of stuff. Just pulling the pigeons out.
Very nice. Another quick question here. This is from Lisa. What age do you start your settling training of young birds? Do you normally start them young, where they're kind of flapping on the ground? Do you set them early down there, or do you start them when they're already strong on the wing? What is your process of settling and training young birds?
We start the settling process at both of our lofts young. Usually the birds are 30 to 38 days old, right in there. 32 to right in there. And they're immediately set out on the landing board and maybe a couple days under the screen of the Fresno, and then let out in the yard. And actually, I encourage the birds to get off the landing board and get down on the ground. So, yeah, they're immediately taken from the stock loft and put right out to learn where home is and start getting their homing ability going.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 days inside the new racing coop from the stock pen, and then they're set out on the Fresno. But we don't like to let them get strong on the wing. Our personal experience is not as good. You don't retain near as many when you're letting them get old and strong on the wing and then try to settle them. Although I know a lot of other people do well doing that too. So it's just our experiences keeps us doing the younger ones.
Now that's okay. Okay, so definitely start them out young. That's the key, right?
Yeah, we figure if they're put right to work, then they don't know any different. They don't sit in the loft and get lazy or dumb or get too strong on the wing and then get scooped up and really have no idea where home is. So, and just to further along with that, young birds, when they have sat for any length of time, I mean, like this year, I took a bird back from my dad's house that was like 42, 45 days old, and took it home, had it out in Fresno for 2 days. First time I let it out at the loft, it literally flew back home to the stock loft, having never been here. My dad and I lived 10 miles apart. So, and he brought it back to me. I set it out in the Fresno for another couple days, gave it a bath, did everything I could to get it to stay. And the next time I let it out with the group, it came right back to his house again.
Wow, and that's a bird that's never been outside, right? Just straight from the stock loft to your loft.
Straight out of the stock loft to my loft, and then flew right back home to the stock loft, not even knowing how to get in or anything like that. Just came home and ended up going in with my dad's race team.
Very nice. It looks like we're getting close to 8 o'clock. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but one question that came to me, and I think it's a really cool question to end the night, is would you guys share maybe a really cool story about a race that you guys have had in your past, and kind of tell us a little bit about what happened and whatnot? They want to know, basically the question is, they want to know about one of your superstar races. Did you have anything crazy cool that happened in your guys' racing seasons?
Well, the most recent one was just this summer, our 600-mile race here in town. My dad and I, he was at his house on his deck. I'm at home on my deck. We're talking on the phone. We've been talking on the phone for over an hour. And anyway, my dad goes, "Oh, my goodness, hey, I just got 4 birds in a drop." I'm like, "No way, 600 pounds? You got to be kidding me." Anyway, yep, I've got 4 birds in a drop. Runs out to the loft. Anyway, one of the 4 birds that came in didn't land with his birds. It landed on the camper, just in his property. And he's been telling me what birds he had clocked. And as he's telling me, my bird came in at my house. Well, I was going to be right with him, just barely beat him. And so then we're talking about that, and he's like, "I don't understand this. My clock is showing 4 birds. And only 3 had trapped, because that 4th bird that had come home at his house was not his. It was still sitting outside." Anyway, he's like, "Oh, my God, I missed my first bird." The whole time we've been sitting there talking, staring at the sky and everything, he got up for just 2 minutes, things where the sprinkler was in his front yard, came back, and totally missed his first bird, but ended up winning the race. And then as the day played out, this is like, 20 minutes before dark, and as the day played out, he had 5 birds, I had 1, and the whole concourse only had 12 birds on. Total on the day.
Speaking of 600s, how many birds? What's the most you guys ever had home on a 600?
Oh, last year, my dad and I both had 14 birds on the day, of 25 each that we'd shift, and my dad had 100% returns on the race. I ended up down 2 for the race,
Wow.
and they.
Now these are not like yearlings, right? These are seasoned racers for the 600.
Oh no, these are yearlings.
Most of them, Tony. That's something different that
Wow.
most people don't do that we do. But we race our yearlings out to 600 almost always.
Wow. So it's not even about season. We're talking yearlings that were born in June, right? Raced the 340 miles, in the next year hitting a 600 miler.
Right, so just barely a year old because it's June again. That's when I
Whoa.
start. The week after that is when I started taking my race my race birds for this year.
Wow.
And the one that I missed, again, he was a yearling. Commonly, our 600s are won with yearlings, and we've had a very, very top success rate in the long races, all of the long races. That's what we excel at, and birds definitely perform for us on those long races.
Wow. That's amazing, man. Yearling 600 miler birds. That's something you don't really hear a lot, and especially the returns that you guys have. There's definitely some magic. So if you guys are out listening, we are talking once again to the Jones boys in Utah, and they have an auction that's going on this weekend. They are going to be live there. Both Ryan and Jones and Ryan and Ray are going to be there with their company wives. So definitely hang out, and if you guys are in the neighborhood, you got to come say hi. Now, this question just popped up really quick, and we have, hopefully, am I taking up all your time? Can I have one more question? Is that okay?
So we're fine.
Yeah, absolutely, we're good.
All right, so here's a question. For sending to one loft, this is from Chuhu Cha. What trait characteristics do you look for that determines if this younger should be sent or stay home? Do you guys look for characteristics when they're young birds and then you guys go from there? Or do you guys do what you just told me, which is, you prove it at home and then you just send as is?
We proved the brothers and sisters the year before, and that's what we're sending out to the one loft races is birds that are out of proven pairings. In fact, when we get a pairing that's breeding that's winners at a good percentage, my dad and I never keep those birds out of that pair again for our own lofts to race. Those are the birds that always get sent to the money races.
And I'll add live to that, Tony, in characteristics. If the bird does not handle 100% like a bird that you would want to take home, keep. I mean, it's got to be a perfect pigeon in hand to be sending to the races too. We don't send every one of them. We only send the ones that we totally feel handles like it could be a race winner too. I mean, you select only the best to send out, and the rest of those we get to keep home and maybe win 600-mile races. But it didn't handle so good.
That's amazing. And has that ever happened before? Say a bird that you said
Yeah.
that you kept and then you just flew it and it won a race?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the birds that we keep are birds that are the ones that weren't going to go that didn't get to go to the one-off races. So, especially in the first 2 rounds.
Wow. All right, guys. I know it's getting a little past 8 o'clock here, and we usually just broadcast for 1 hour. And before we go, before we conclude, I'll give you guys both a chance to say hi to everybody and maybe give them a warm greeting and tell them that you're going to be where you guys are going to be this weekend and go from there. So once again, I'm going to leave the mic to Jones boys here so they can say their final farewell to everybody.
All right. Well, it's very wonderful having the opportunity to speak with everyone, and I'm hoping that a lot of you will look at that Grainbelt auction. I would like to throw in this year I was extremely happy at the AU this last weekend. The Jones boys were awarded the Breeder Elite Award, the Elite Breeder of the Year by the AU. I thought it was quite an honor. And hopefully, I mean, we put those same pigeons in that have done this for us always. And look at the auction site, and there are some just fantastic pigeons in there to look over, to play with. And it's very nice to have been able to have talked with everyone here.
Absolutely. And everybody, please come out and join us at the Grainbelt. I've got a whole lot better stories and a whole lot more stories of races here and at Loft races. I would love to share with everybody. Come visit with us. It's going to be a party. So come join Paul, Daniel, Kimberly, myself, Denise, my dad, my mom, Annette, and of course the great club over there in Omaha. You guys have never been there and experienced it. Those guys do it right. They're really a club to be admired and mirrored. If every club like that was in the United States, our sport would be flourishing for certain. I mean, those guys really show what camaraderie is all about. Also, I'd like to just, if anybody wants suggestions for one Loft races that I think really do it great, John Timmerman's California Classic, the San Diego Holiday Classic. One that we are definitely not going to miss out is Tony's Cuervo's Classic in Texas. So anyway, just wanted to give those guys a shout out. And those are definitely one Loft races that I'm looking forward to participating in the future, and ones that we have for a lot of years in the past.
And Ryan and Ray, so the ones that are listening today, if they have questions about the birds that you guys have to offer or any questions like that, can they contact you guys directly? Do you guys have a telephone number you guys would like for them to call, or maybe email? Can you give that information for us?
Absolutely. It'd probably be best to contact my dad, as he's more readily available, as I work a full-time job. My dad's number is 801-560-4567. And if you would like to talk to me personally, my number is 801-971-3586. Also, our email address for my dad is jonesboys@gmail.com. And my personal email is, we used to have a Sinclair station that was named Ray Jones Sinclair, so it's after that. It's RAYJSIN@gmail.com.
And once again, listeners, I will have this information on the YouTube page as well, with their contact information and email. But before that, first of all, I just want to thank Ray and Ryan for your time today. It has been a pleasure talking to you guys, learning more about your birds and what you guys have for availability. And I know that in the next future here, we'll definitely do more sessions with you guys and really dissect young birds, old birds, and breeding. So if you guys have any questions, definitely email me or text me or call me, so that when we get the Jones boys back in, we'll dive even deeper into this subject. So gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you guys this weekend at Omaha, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Tony. We're looking forward to seeing you, buddy.
It's so nice to talk with you and spend time with you. You're a great leader of this deal. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
All right.
So, guys, thank you guys for listening tonight. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a mishap in the beginning, but we were able to correct it right away. That's one thing that goes with a live broadcast, is when something happens, it happens, and you got to be able to dissect and fix it right away. And I'm glad we were able to correct it right away and get the Jones boys on the phone, because it would have been devastating for me. And I hope you guys were able to take some notes. I don't know about you guys, but I've learned a lot today. That breeding early is not always the answer. I mean, I can't believe Ray and Ryan, Ryan won the AU race a couple years back, and I was one of the guys that sent birds to him, and he said to me, "Don't send me a bird. Don't send me a bird until old bird races end, because I ain't going to be taking any of your birds." And he placed 5 in the top 5. So it is amazing what he can do and his family of birds. I hope you guys were able to learn a little bit about that. Thank you guys for listening and your questions. Please pay attention because tomorrow we have another broadcast. It's going to be with Mr. Paul Daniels with Flying D. It's going to be very similar to this time. Mr. Paul is going to be actually calling us on his phone at a hotel stop. He's actually driving on the way now to Omaha with all his birds in his vehicle and going to hit up a hotel spot to have a conversation with us. So please, if you guys are available tomorrow night, if you guys have questions to ask, we're going to run a very similar program today with a Q&A session at the end. And so please listen to him and see what he's got going on. It's going to be a fabulous time in Omaha. If you guys have not heard about it, it's the Omaha Grainbelt 50th anniversary, featured by the Omaha boys down there. So please pay attention to them. Go to iPigeon, take a look at their birds. And if you guys have any other questions, definitely email me and call me. Once again, sorry for the mishap in the beginning, but hey, we got the ball rolling. My name is Tony Hang. I'm signing off with PDocs Broadcast. Thank you and have a great day.